Jack Harrison sat in the dim control room, his eyes fixed on the monitor. For 30 years, he had studied languages that no human had ever spoken. Now his skills would finally be tested. "It's coming through again," said Susan Miller, her voice tight with tension. As Director of Global Defense, she had pushed for caution since the first signal arrived 3 months ago. The message flashed across the screen, strange symbols shifting and changing. Jack's fingers flew across his keyboard, the translation program he had built working overtime. "They call themselves the Galactic Council," he said. 37 species united under one governing body. President Alan Rodriguez leaned forward, his face pale in the blue light of the screens. "And they want to talk to us." "More than that," Jack replied. "They want to welcome us." The year was 2089, and humanity had been sending messages into space for over a century. Few truly believed anyone was listening. They were wrong. In the days that followed, the world changed. Stock markets soared and crashed. Religious leaders gathered in emergency councils. Military forces went on high alert. And Jack Harrison barely slept, working to build a common language with beings from across the stars. "I don't trust them," Susan said one night, as they reviewed new transmissions. "Nobody travels across stars just to make friends." Jack rubbed his tired eyes. "Not everyone sees threats everywhere. Susan, that's why I have my job, and you have yours." The council sent knowledge freely: cures for diseases, improved energy systems, faster computer technologies. With each gift, humanity's excitement grew. All gifts came with the same message: join us as equals. 6 months after first contact, the United Nations voted to accept the Council's invitation. Only a handful of nations abstained. None opposed. Olivia Bennett stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her uniform. At 42, the former diplomat had never expected to become humanity's first ambassador to an alien federation. Her small apartment was packed in boxes, though she had been told she needed to bring nothing to her new home among the stars. "Mom, are you scared?" asked her son Ben from the doorway. Olivia smiled. "A little, but mostly excited." "Will you be able to call?" "They say communication will be possible. Different time, of course." Outside her window, crowds had gathered. Some carried signs welcoming the visitors. Others warned of alien deception. The world remained divided on whether this was humanity's greatest achievement or its most foolish mistake. At the landing site, Jack stood with President Rodriguez and other world leaders. The council's ship descended silently, a massive silver oval that reflected the clouds. No engines were visible. No heat signature registered on their instruments. "How does it fly?" whispered Jack. Susan Miller, standing behind a line of security personnel, muttered, "That's what worries me." The ship opened, and for the first time, humanity saw its cosmic neighbors. The delegates varied in size and shape, some with multiple limbs, others floating on cushions of light. Their leader stepped forward, a tall being with iridescent skin that shifted colors as it moved. "We welcome Earth to the greater community," it said, its words translated through devices they had provided weeks earlier. "Today begins a new era for your species." As Olivia Bennett stepped forward to board the ship that would take her to the council headquarters, Jack felt both pride and an unexpected sense of loss. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for generations, proof they were not alone in the universe. What no one realized that day was that the council had been watching Earth for centuries, patiently waiting, and that their welcoming smiles hid ancient fears of what humanity might become if left to develop on its own. The ship rose silently into the clouds, taking humanity's representative to her new role. The crowds cheered. News networks broadcast the historic moment worldwide. And in her secure office, Susan Miller began a classified file labeled "Council Contingencies." Just in case. 20 years passed quickly. Humanity spread across the solar system, building homes on Mars, mining operations on Jupiter's moons, and research stations orbiting Saturn. With Council technology, The journey to nearby stars took months instead of centuries. Human colonies now existed on planets circling Proxima Centauri and Ta Ceti. But all was not well. Frank Morgan stood at the window of his office on Luna Base, looking at the blue sphere of Earth. As chief of military strategy, he had access to reports that few others saw. "Come look at this," he said to Lisa Carpenter, who had just entered his office. The engineer had dark circles under her eyes, evidence of too many late nights studying council technology. Lisa placed a small device on his desk. "I took this apart yesterday. It's from their latest gift to us." Frank picked it up. "What am I looking at?" "A surveillance module, hidden inside the navigation system. It records everything and transmits it back to Council space." Frank wasn't surprised. For years, he had been collecting evidence that the Council was not the benevolent force it claimed to be. Humanity had been classified as a Class 4 civilization, with limited voting rights in Council matters. Their suggestions were politely heard, then ignored. "Ambassador Paddle is making another appeal today," Frank said, turning back to the window. "He'll be ignored, like always." Lisa sighed. "They don't see us as equals. Never have." On the Council's massive space station at the edge of the solar system, William Patel tried to keep his voice calm as he addressed the assembled alien representatives. "The disappearances on our Ta Ceti colony must be investigated," he said. "Council ships were seen in that sector without proper notification." Grand Councilor Zakroth, a tall being with gray skin and 4 eyes, waved a dismissive hand. "Your colonists likely wandered into restricted areas. The matter is closed." William felt his face grow hot. For 3 years as Earth's ambassador, he had been treated with the same condescension. Earth was a child at the adults' table, to be seen, not heard. Later that day, William met secretly with Olivia Bennett, now retired but still influential. They chose a garden area with flowing water that masked their conversation from potential listening devices. "It's worse than we thought," Olivia said quietly. "I've been translating ancient council records. They've done this before, found promising species, shared technology to make them dependent, then slowly stripped away their independence." William nodded. "The missing colonists. Test subjects, most likely. They study us, William, like lab animals." Back on Earth, President Rodriguez received the encrypted message from Ambassador Paddle. His decision was made in minutes. He contacted Susan Miller, now in her 70s but still sharp as ever. "Activate Project Nightshade," he told her. "It's time." Deep within the asteroid belt, hidden from Council sensors, humanity had been building ships. Not the smooth Council-approved vessels that traveled the established routes, but warships with technology the humans had developed on their own. Captain Carol Rice stood on the bridge of the first completed vessel, aptly named Nightshade. Its stealth technology made it invisible to standard Council detection methods. "Your orders, Captain," said the voice of Susan Miller through the secure channel. "Make contact with our isolated colonies, warn them, and gather intelligence on Council military capabilities." Carol looked at her crew, all chosen for their skills and discretion. "We leave in 6 hours. The Council doesn't know we exist, and that's our advantage." As Nightshade prepared for departure, Council delegates were already meeting in emergency session. Human communication patterns had changed. Their cooperation had decreased. Something was happening on Earth that their surveillance couldn't fully capture. "Perhaps it's time," said one delegate, "to solve the human problem permanently, before they become a real threat." Grand Councilor Zakroth nodded slowly. "Prepare containment protocols. If humans won't accept their place, we will need to remind them of it." Neither side knew it yet, but the clock was ticking toward confrontation. The Council discovered humanity's secret fleet faster than anyone expected. A routine patrol had detected unusual energy readings in the asteroid belt. They found nothing, but their suspicions were aroused. Grand Councilor Zakroth stood before the full assembly of the Galactic Council, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. "We have confirmed that humans are building unauthorized military vessels," he announced. "This violates Section 7 of the membership agreement." The chamber erupted in shouts and clicks and whistles, the varied sounds of 37 species expressing alarm. On Earth, President Alan Rodriguez was awakened at 3 a.m. by an urgent call. The holographic image of Ambassador William Patel appeared beside his bed. "They know about the ships," William said without greeting. "Zakroth has called an emergency session." Alan sat up, instantly alert. "How much do they know?" "Not everything, but enough. They're voting on sanctions right now." 6 hours later, the Council's ultimatum arrived. The message was broadcast worldwide, bypassing Earth's government channels. "People of Earth," Zakroth's image declared, "your leaders have violated our trust. You have built weapons of war in secret. This cannot stand. You have 7 Earth days to dismantle all unauthorized military vessels and submit to full inspection. If you refuse, the Council will impose sanctions. Your colonies will be cut off. Your trade will end. Choose wisely." In the White House Situation Room, President Rodriguez looked at the faces around him. Susan Miller, still serving as an advisor despite her age. Frank Morgan, now the top military commander. Lissa Carpenter, head of technological development. "Options?" he asked simply. Frank spoke first. "If we surrender the ships, we lose our only advantage. If we refuse..." He didn't need to finish. "The Council has done this before," Susan said. "They find promising species, control their development, and eliminate those who resist. We've seen the records." The president nodded slowly. "Then we don't have a choice. Send our response." The next day, President Rodriguez addressed the world. "We have informed the Galactic Council that Earth respectfully declines their ultimatum. We assert our right to self-defense as a sovereign planet. We remain open to peaceful dialogue." The Council's response was swift. Massive ships moved into position around Earth, Mars, and the lunar colonies. All travel between human worlds stopped. Communications with distant colonies were jammed. Captain Carol Reyes received new orders for the Nightshade. "Break through the blockade. Reach our people in the colonies. Tell them to prepare." The sleek black ship slipped past the Council blockade using technology that bent light around its hull. The Council ships never detected it. On the Proxima Centauri colony, Governor Peter Lewis received Carol's message with growing alarm. "How bad is it?" he asked. "Worse than we thought," she replied. "The Council is preparing for more than sanctions. Intelligence suggests they're mobilizing their military fleets." Peter looked out the window at the settlement his people had built over the last decade. "What do we do?" "Prepare your people and wait for the signal." Back on Earth, communications with the colonies became increasingly difficult. Council jamming technology blocked most signals. The few messages that got through were worrying. Council ships in orbit, landing parties demanding inspections, people missing from the outer settlements. In the Council chambers, the delegate from the Vrex species addressed the assembly. "Humans are dangerous. Their history is filled with violence. Their literature celebrates war. They cannot be allowed to spread their aggression to the stars." Many delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but remained silent. Grand Councilor Zakroth raised his hand for attention. "The human problem requires more than blockades. They refuse to learn their place." His voice lowered. "The containment protocol must be implemented." In their private language, untranslatable to humans, the senior council members discussed the details of what would be Earth's punishment. None of them realized that humanity had been preparing for this moment for years, and that soon they would learn why it was dangerous to corner a species that had evolved as both predator and prey. The attack came at dawn. Without warning, Council ships appeared in Earth's atmosphere above major cities. They had somehow bypassed the outer defense systems. Commander Nathan Carter stood in the control center of Earth's orbital defense platform, watching in horror as red dots appeared on the global map. "All stations, this is not a drill," he said into the global military channel. "Hostile forces above Beijing, New York, London, Moscow, and Delhi. Engage defense protocols." Around the world, hidden missile systems emerged from underground bunkers and ocean platforms. Humanity had prepared for this day. But the Council had prepared longer. The first strikes disabled Earth's satellite network. The second wave targeted military bases. The third hit power stations and communication hubs. In 12 minutes, Earth's organized defense capability was reduced by 60%. "They're targeting our command structure," Nathan said as reports flooded in. "They're not going after civilians." Susan Miller, watching from the emergency bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, nodded grimly. "Not yet. They want to control, not destroy." On Mars, Council troops landed near the main human settlement. The colony's small defense force fought bravely, but was quickly overwhelmed. The lunar base surrendered without firing a shot. President Rodriguez spoke to the remaining military leaders from his underground command center. "Activate Protocol Omega," he ordered, "effective immediately." Around the solar system, human military commanders received the coded message. They understood what had to be done. In orbit around Earth, Nathan Carter watched as Council ships formed a blockade around the planet. His defense platform was one of the few still operational. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're getting a transmission from the Council flagship." The image of Grand Counselor Zakharov appeared on the main screen. "Commander Carter, your resistance is admirable but futile. Surrender your platform, and we will spare your crew." Nathan stood straight, his face betraying no emotion. "We decline your offer, Counselor." Zakharov's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Then you will die for nothing." "Perhaps," Nathan replied, "but not today." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "You all know what Protocol Omega means. It's been an honor serving with you." Throughout the solar system, the remaining human ships suddenly changed course. They accelerated directly toward Council vessels in kamikaze attacks. The Council, unprepared for such tactics, lost 23 ships in the first wave. Karen Wright, a resistance leader on Earth, moved through the underground tunnels beneath Chicago. Since the attack began, she had been activating sleeper cells of trained civilians. "We need to secure the emergency transmitters," she told her team. "When the signal comes, every transmitter needs to be ready." On the Council flagship, Zakharov received reports of the suicide attacks with disbelief. "They're sacrificing their ships and crews. For what purpose?" His tactical officer had no answer. Then something strange happened. One by one, human communications began to stop, not from damage or jamming. They simply went silent. Military channels, civilian broadcasts, internet traffic, personal devices. Within 1 hour, all electronic communications from Earth ceased completely. At first, the Council thought their attack had been more successful than planned. But scout ships reported that power was still on in many areas. Cities were still lit. Infrastructure was functioning. But no one was talking. No signals were being sent. No broadcasts were being made. The silence spread to Mars, then to the lunar colonies, then to the outer system outposts. In her underground command center, Susan Miller watched the final stages of Protocol Omega complete. She picked up a secure phone, one of the few communication devices still active, and called the president. "It's done," she said. "We've gone dark." President Rodriguez nodded, though she couldn't see him. "Now we see if our gamble works." Above Earth, Zakharov stared at the monitoring screens. The planet below was intact. His forces controlled the space around it. Yet something was wrong, something that made his ancient species' instincts scream a warning. For the first time in the Council's history, a species they were subduing had completely, deliberately, gone silent. 3 weeks passed without a single transmission from Earth or any human colony. The Council declared victory, but unease spread through their ranks. "Something is wrong. Grand Counselor Zakroth said to his advisors. Our patrols report empty cities, functioning infrastructure, but no humans. In the Council's Intelligence Division, Paul Martinez kept his face carefully neutral. As one of the few humans who had infiltrated the Council years ago, he now fed false information into their systems. Our sensors show no signs of mass evacuation, he reported. The population appears to have gone into hiding. What he didn't reveal was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over a decade. Protocol Omega wasn't just about going silent. It was about disappearing. On Earth, deep below the Rocky Mountains, Daniel Wilson surveyed the massive underground complex. Millions of humans now lived in similar facilities around the world, hidden from Council sensors by technology that Lisa Carpenter had developed by studying and improving upon alien designs. How long until Phase 2? Daniel asked his chief engineer. 4 more days. The nanite production is at 87%. Daniel nodded. The microscopic robots would be humanity's secret weapon. Invisible to Council detection, they could disable alien technology from within. Above ground, Council inspection teams found abandoned cities with strange inconsistencies. Meals left half-eaten. Cars stopped in the middle of streets, as if everyone had simply vanished at once. It makes no sense, said one Council scientist. Our sensors detect no human life signatures, yet there are signs of recent activity everywhere. What they couldn't know was that human scientists had found a way to mask their biological signatures. Every human now carried a device that blocked the specific frequency that Council sensors use to detect sentient life. On a distant Council outpost near the edge of human space, Commander Vrex of the Security Force filed another disturbing report. 3 patrol ships had gone missing in the past week. No distress calls. No debris. They simply disappeared. The human silence is spreading, he noted in his log. It's as if space itself is swallowing our ships. In reality, the ships had been captured by vessels that didn't officially exist. Human stealth ships using technology that bent light around their hulls, making them invisible even to advanced Council sensors. Inside the Galactic Council's main chamber, the first cracks in their unity began to show. This was supposed to be a simple containment operation, said the delegate from the Krull system. Now we have an entire species that has vanished. This is unprecedented. Another delegate stood. Perhaps we should have approached humans differently. Their history shows they respond poorly to threats. Grand Counselor Zakroth slammed his hand on the table. Humans are primitive and dangerous. We've contained them, as we have done with other potential threats throughout our history. But his words lacked conviction. In his private quarters, Zakroth reviewed the historical records. No species had ever responded to Council intervention this way. No species had ever simply disappeared. In a hidden base on Mars, Karen Wright received a transmission from Daniel Wilson. The message came through a quantum-entangled communication device that was impossible to intercept or detect. Phase 2 begins tomorrow, he told her. Is your team ready? Karen looked at the hundreds of soldiers and scientists in the underground Martian base. We're ready. The Council patrol never detected us during their sweep. Good. Remember, even after we begin, maintain the silence protocol. No standard communications, no signals they can trace. Across the solar system, similar preparations were underway. Humanity had not fled or surrendered. They had simply changed the rules of engagement. On a Council science vessel orbiting Earth, a sensor technician noticed something strange in the atmospheric readings. Microscopic particles were increasing in number, too small to identify, but too numerous to ignore. By the time she reported it to her superior, the particles had already infiltrated the ship's air system. By nightfall, critical systems began failing without explanation. The silence was about to end, but not with words. Humanity would speak through action. 3 years after humanity went silent, the Council's grip on the solar system began to fail. It started with small things: equipment malfunctions, communication errors, supply ships arriving empty with crews who couldn't explain why. Grand Counselor Zakroth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as another outpost went dark on the tactical display. "That's the 7th station this month," his second-in-command said quietly. "No distress signal. No survivors found." Zakroth's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Increased patrols in all sectors. Something is happening." What was happening was Michelle Howard's stealth fleet. As commander of humanity's hidden navy, she led precision strikes from bases concealed in the asteroid belt. Her ships, coated with light-absorbing materials and equipped with gravity-dampening technology, were invisible to Council sensors. "Alpha Team, target their communication array," she ordered as her flagship approached a Council military station. "Beta Team, capture their data core intact." The Council never saw them coming. They never heard the boarding teams cutting through their hulls. The stations simply went dark, one by one. Council scientists were baffled by their inability to detect the human ships. "It's impossible," one researcher told Zakroth. "No technology can hide from our quantum scanners." But humans had done the impossible. By studying Council technology and then taking it in unexpected directions, Lisa Carpenter's team had developed quantum shifting vessels that existed partially outside normal space. In hidden bases across the solar system, humanity prepared for the next phase. Ryan Phillips, the new military leader after Susan Miller's retirement, activated sleeper agents throughout Council space. "The time has come," his message said, transmitted through undetectable quantum channels. "Operation Lazarus begins now." On occupied Mars, Karen Wright received the message. She gathered her resistance fighters in their underground base. "For 3 years we've waited and prepared," she told them. "Today, we take back our home." Across Mars, hidden humans emerged from concealed bunkers. They carried weapons that targeted the specific frequency of Council shield technology, rendering their defenses useless. The Council forces on Mars fell within hours, never understanding how they had been defeated by an enemy they couldn't detect. Similar uprisings occurred on the Moon and on stations throughout the solar system. By the time the Council realized what was happening, they had lost control of every human world except Earth itself, where their main fleet remained in orbit. On the Council's central space station, panic spread as reports flooded in. 3 member species announced their withdrawal from the coalition, unwilling to face humanity's wrath. "How is this possible?" demanded the Frex delegate. "We were told humans were contained." Paul Martinez, still maintaining his cover in Council intelligence, secretly transmitted the station's defense codes to Michelle Howard's fleet. When her ships appeared suddenly around the station, the Council had no time to react. Zakroth watched in disbelief as human ships materialized from empty space. They didn't open fire. They didn't need to. The message was clear. "Open a channel," he ordered his communications officer. The screen lit up with the image of Ryan Phillips standing on the bridge of the largest human vessel. "Grand Counselor," Ryan said calmly, "I believe it's time we renegotiated the terms of humanity's membership in your council." Zakroth fought to maintain his composure. "Your species has violated every protocol. You've hidden your true capabilities. You've attacked Council facilities." Ryan smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "We learned from the best, Counselor. Your own records show how you've dealt with problem species throughout your history. We simply refuse to be another entry in that list." In orbit around Earth, the Council's main fleet found itself surrounded by human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Ships that, according to all known science, could not exist. Zakroth knew then that everything had changed. The Council had existed for 10,000 years, guiding and controlling the development of younger species. Now, for the first time, they faced a species that had silently outpaced them. "What are your terms?" he asked, his voice barely steady. Ryan's answer was simple. "Your complete withdrawal from our space. And then we'll talk about the future." The silence had ended, but the terror in the Council had just begun. 6 months after humanity's emergence, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Nearly a third of the seats stood empty, as species after species had withdrawn their membership. Those who remained watched nervously as Elizabeth Barnes, the new human ambassador, walked to the central platform. Unlike previous human representatives who had been kept at the edges of council proceedings, Elizabeth stood at the center. Her simple blue uniform bore no rank or decoration, but she didn't need them. Everyone knew who she was. For too long, she began, this council has operated on principles of control rather than cooperation. Today, that changes. Grand Councillor Zakroth, diminished but still in power, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The council fleet had withdrawn from human space as demanded, but the humiliation still stung. The humans propose a new structure, Elizabeth continued. One where all species have equal standing, where technological advancement is shared, not controlled, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Such ideas threatened thousands of years of council tradition. Why should we listen to demands from a species that hid its true nature? Asked one delegate. Elizabeth smiled. We didn't hide our nature. You simply failed to understand it. Human history is filled with stories of the underdog rising up against oppressors. Did you really think we wouldn't recognize what you were doing? On a large display behind her, images appeared, ancient council records that had been secured during the liberation of their central database. These records showed 27 species that were deemed too aggressive or too unpredictable by this council, Elizabeth said. Species that were subsequently contained, controlled, or eliminated entirely. The chamber fell silent. Many delegates had never seen these classified records. Linda Graham, a human historian who had spent years studying the council archives, stepped forward. The founding species of this council feared competition. They created a system that identified promising young civilizations, then ensured they would never become true rivals. The evidence was overwhelming. Records dating back thousands of years showed the systematic suppression of species with potential to challenge the council's founding members. In the back of the chamber, Paul Martinez watched with satisfaction. His years as a spy had finally paid off, providing humanity with the intelligence needed to survive. We offer a choice, Elizabeth continued. Join us in forming a new alliance based on true equality, or continue with the old council, diminished and exposed. One by one, delegates began to stand. First came the newer council members, species that had themselves felt the subtle control of the older members. Then, surprisingly, several of the ancient species rose as well. We were wrong about humans, said the delegate from the Trill system, one of the oldest council members. We saw your adaptability as dangerous. We didn't recognize it as your greatest strength. Within weeks, a new interstellar alliance formed. The Galactic Council didn't end. Some species clung to the old ways, but its power was forever broken. On Earth, celebrations marked the return of full independence. Cities that had been silent now filled with music and voices. People emerged from underground bases to rebuild. In a quiet garden at the New Alliance headquarters, Jack Harrison, the linguist who had first communicated with the Council decades ago, met with representatives of a newly discovered sentient species from a distant star. Though now elderly, Jack's eyes were bright as he activated his translation program. The alien's first message was simple. We have heard of Earth. We seek friendship. Jack smiled. Once, he had been naive enough to believe such words without question. Now, humanity knew better, but they also knew that true friendship between species was possible. It just had to be built on respect, not fear. Welcome, Jack replied. Let me tell you a story about how humanity learned the value of silence and how the galaxy learned to listen. Around them, representatives of dozens of species, former council members, and newly discovered civilizations alike, gathered to hear the tale. The silence had served its purpose. Now it was time for humanity's voice to be heard across the stars.